Welcome back, Geico Outkick Studios. Appreciate all of you hanging out with us. Hope you're having a fantastic start to your Tuesday. NFL Week 3 in the books. And as we just said, opening up the show, I believe Patrick Mahomes is Michael Jordan. There's no true heir apparent. There's no true rival to him. The difference between he and Lamar Jackson is substantial in the way they play the game. But Mahomes just came out and flat out, the Chiefs took over. I mean, in all honesty, if they had made their field goal, if they had made their extra points, that would have been over at halftime. It was over early in the fourth quarter. The Ravens had a little bit of a flicker of life and, early in kind of the third quarter, but then it just, was basically a beatdown. And the Chiefs are, I believe, as a part of that, the best team in the NFL right now. And so what we usually do every single Tuesday is we try to put in context what we saw with all the teams out there. We're now through 3 weeks in the NFL. And to me, it's pretty easy at this point in time to recognize there are 7 undefeated teams, okay? 7 3-0 teams right now. And yes, you can argue that some of the 3-0 teams are not necessarily the best teams in the NFL, and I'll talk about that a little bit in a moment. But I think you can rank the 7 3-0 teams and kind of put into context what we have seen from them in order to kind of think about who are Super Bowl contenders among these 3-0 teams. So we do this every single week, the Outkick top 5, bottom 5, but I am expanding right now the Outkick top 5 to the Outkick top 7, and I'm going to count you down the 7 undefeated teams in reverse order, in the order in which I think they're the best in the NFL. And we begin with the 7th best team in the NFL, who is 3-0, Chicago Bears. They've already had to get rid of Mitch Trubisky. They've brought in Nick Foles, who's the ultimate reliever. The question is, can Nick Foles go the distance, or is he a guy who comes in for 5 or 6 games and is really good? The Bears could easily be 0-3. They haven't played a very high caliber of competition so far. I believe the Chicago Bears are the worst 3-0 team in the league. Now, Bear fans are going to be upset. We got a huge audience in Chicago, people downloading the podcast, listening, reading the show, reading the Outkick news. I understand Bear fans are not going to be happy. Hey, it's a good insult to be the worst 3-0 team. There's a lot of teams that are not undefeated that would be ecstatic to be the worst 3-0 team. Somebody's got to be it. I think it's the Bears. Who's the 6th best 3-0 team? I think it's my Tennessee Titans. The Titans are 3-0, but they have won all 3 by a late field goal. Stephen Gostkowski made 6 field goals for the Titans on the road against the Vikings, and the Titans have beaten 3 teams with a combined, I believe I am correct in this, 1-8 record so far. So the Titans haven't beat anybody good. Now, the Steelers are coming to town this weekend in Nashville. Roughly 50-50 game. Both teams are undefeated. We'll see what happens there. Titan defense has been awful. Had some injuries on the defensive side of the ball. They were actually pretty strong defensively last year. And I saw this stat and I thought, I got to make sure that I share this with everybody. If you want to make a bullish case for the Titans, here are the most wins in the NFL since Ryan Tannehill took over as the starting quarterback for the Tennessee Titans in Week 7. If you remember last year, Marcus Mariota was the starter, now the backup for the Raiders. The Titans started 2-4. They benched Mariota. They brought in Ryan Tannehill. Since that point in time, the Chiefs are right now the best team in the NFL since Week 7 of last year. Doesn't surprise anybody. They are 14-2, okay? The Ravens are 12-2. The Packers are 13-3. The Titans are 12-4. The 49ers are 12-5. So the 5 best teams in the NFL since we got to the Ryan Tannehill taking over are the Chiefs, the Ravens, who we just watched play last night, the Packers, who we watched play Sunday night, the Titans, and the 49ers, who we saw in the Super Bowl last year. So that's a pretty good endorsement of how good the Titans have been since they got Ryan Tannehill. And you can make an argument that it's important to be able to figure out a way to win close games, and then things can start to round into shape later in the year. Again, I've got the Titans and the Bears as the two worst 7-0 teams, but I think almost everybody out there would say I'd be ecstatic if my team was 3-0 and Clay Travis didn't think they were very good. Fifth place, counting up for the 3-0 teams, I've got the Steelers. Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers have been just okay. I like what I'm seeing from the defense. The offense has not yet been explosive. I just talked about the fact that the Steelers and the Titans are both going to get a good challenge now. The Steelers have been able to win despite playing basically no one good, much like the Titans have. So now they go head-to-head in Nashville, battle of 3-0 teams. I think it's one of the best games going to take place on Sunday. I've got the Steelers in the 5 spot. 4 spot, Buffalo Bills. 4th best team in the NFL among the 3-0 teams. I've got the Buffalo Bills. A stat that I saw that blew my mind. My guy Peter Schrager put this out on Good Morning Football. Josh Allen in his last 14 games, 33 touchdowns, 3 INTs. 33 touchdowns, 3 INTs for Josh Allen in the last 14 games. The Bills' defense hasn't been very good. They were fortunate to win against the Rams. The Rams got a beneficial pass interference call against the Cowboys. They got a detrimental pass interference call against the Bills. Bills hung on. They were a defense-first team last year. Josh Allen seems to have moved from a guy you win in spite of to a guy you win because of. Could this be the year that the Bills win their first playoff game? Dub, make sure I'm correct about this. I believe since 1995 when they went to the Super Bowl. We'll see, but I've got the Bills sliding in at the 4th best team. In the 3 spot, undefeated teams, I've got the Seahawks. Russell Westbrook, 14 touchdowns, 1 INT. The 1 interception went right through his receiver, tight end, Greg Olson's hands. That's the best number of touchdowns that we have ever seen to start off any first 3 weeks in NFL history. The defense is not very good for the Seahawks, which gives me pause, but it also means that the offense gets the ball back quickly. The Seahawks are going to be in a lot of shootouts like they were against the Cowboys this past weekend, and I've got right now the Seahawks as my 3rd best 3-0 team. 2nd spot, Packers. Packers have scored 122 points since the season began through 3 weeks. That is the most points that have been scored. The most points that have been scored by a Packer franchise ever in history. And it feels like Aaron Rodgers took legitimate offense when they went out and drafted Jordan Love and tried to send the message to him, hey, we're moving on from you. It feels like they took legitimate offense that the Packers did, and Aaron Rodgers is just playing out of his mind right now. And as a result, I've got the Packers as the 2nd best team in the undefeated top 7. And then the best team, and we saw him play last night, Patrick Mahomes came out. He was otherworldly. He was significantly better than the Ravens. I told you guys, I hope you listened to me on Friday, and I retold you on Monday. I'll even bring in Dub to re-echo this. What did we say on Friday? You're telling me I get Patrick Mahomes on the road with an extra day to prepare for Andy Reid, and I get them as a 4-point underdog against the Ravens? Sign me up. I'm taking this one, and I'm taking it straight to the bank. You're almost never going to get Patrick Mahomes as an underdog anytime. Just like you almost never got Tom Brady as an underdog. This was easy call. The Ravens brought the blitz against him 18 times. He was 15 of 18, threw for over 200 yards, touchdowns galore. They couldn't stop him all night. This is a guy you cannot get past, and he just picked apart the defense all night long. I mean, it was just a beatdown, an utter beatdown. The only thing you could point to really and have any issue with on the Chiefs was Harrison Butker, who's usually one of the most reliable kickers in the NFL, wasn't very good. And so this was just an absolute beatdown from the Kansas City Chiefs, who are clearly the best team, I believe, in the NFL. And I think they served notice last night that, yes, we won the Super Bowl, but we're not resting on our laurels. You could totally see this performance coming because the Chiefs were not good against the Chargers, and they had an extra day. They had time to stew on it. And you felt a little bit, if you watch Patrick Mahomes play, the way he was counting his touchdowns, you felt like he wanted to send a message that this was his league. And I know that people talk a lot about Lamar Jackson, and he was the MVP last year. But I talked about this to start the show. It was almost Jordan-esque in the way that Patrick Mahomes was looking for a slight. It was like, oh, you gave the MVP last year to Lamar Jackson. You remember the documentary, how Michael Jordan, if you watched the documentary, The Last Dance on ESPN, every time Jordan needed motivation, he would find motivation. It would be the slightest thing you've ever seen. Oh, Karl Malone got the MVP that year. Oh, remember when George Karl didn't talk to him in the restaurant, and he took that as a sign of disrespect. This was a guy who was looking everywhere for people to disrespect him, and then he went out and found a way to triumph over them if he had to even bring his own motivation into bear. And I just thought it was fascinating. They kind of got the vibe that that's what Patrick Mahomes is doing. And so my top 7 3-0 teams, now that we are 3 weeks into the NFL and we got 7 3-0 teams in order. Chiefs are the best in the NFL. Packers are the second best. If I had to predict right now who's going to meet in the Super Bowl, I would say Chiefs-Packers. Seahawks I've got at the 3rd spot. In the 4th spot, I've got the Bills. Then I've got the Steelers at 5, the Titans at 6. They play this weekend. It'll be interesting to see who emerges from that game and gets to 4-0. And, oh, by the way, the Bills play next week against the Titans. So it's possible the Bills could be 4-0 and the Titans could be 4-0 in back-to-back undefeated matchups there. And then I've got the Bears in the 7th spot. All right? That is the list of niceties, the list of positive things. You know what I should do, Dub? Should I save the list of sadness for later in the show since we're about to talk with Jason Whitlock? Or do you think I should do the list of sadness right now?
Let's save it. I think the list of sadness later on in the show, I think that has a nice touch to it.
The list of sadness later on the show does have a nice touch to it. All right. The NHL ended. By the way, we've got an NHL Stanley Cup champ. Congrats to all of our listeners down in the Tampa Bay area.